Srimati Deepika Mittal and Shri Manoj Kaushik, both Additional Director FIU. Friends, I am Ashok Ajmera. I am the board member of BSc Broker Forum. I will take you through this meeting today, coordinating it. So, can we rise for the national anthem, please, before we start this meeting? To Srimati Deepika Mittal, to Shri Manoj Kaushik, and Siddharth Bhai to Shri Ashish Kumar Ji Chauhan, the MD and CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange. For the formal welcome, I request our BSc Broker Forum Chairman, Shri Siddharth Shah, to kindly come forward and give his welcome address. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. It's an honor and privilege to welcome Shri P.K. Tiwari, Director FIU, and his team, Mr. Manoj Kaushik and Ms. Deepika Mittal. Thank you very much, sir, for coming all the way from Delhi to interact with our members. And of course, at BSc Broker Forum, it's always our philosophy. Yeah, compliance is difficult. Compliance is painful, but we believe at Forum that if processes are properly laid down and it is executed well, then compliance is an automated thing in your offices. And in that endeavor, we have a number of seminars, and we, in our Forum magazine also, we circulate all the required things for betterment and for the compliance purposes. For the knowledge of the members, we have started a new series at BSc Broker Forum known as Knowledge at BBF, under which we have released 2 videos. And those 2 videos are on YouTube, on Facebook, and also on our website, brokersforumindia.com. These 2 videos, one talks of course, PMLA. That video is being prepared by my friend Mr. Sagar Tanda. It's a 20-25 minutes video. I'm sure anybody who would go through this video, the whole idea is that many people cannot reach this convention hall. And for specifically outstation members, we have prepared this so once any of your staff member, any of your sub-brokers, any of your franchisee would like to see that, it covers the entire understanding of PMLA and how to comply with PMLA. Second video, of course, on the business opportunity, that is overnight product launched by BSE. That also we have launched. So my request and appeal to all the members, please go through this and visit our website to download this videos. And of course, I won't take much of your time because we are running a little late, and Mr. Tiwari has to catch early flight. So again, welcome you, sir. And of course, welcome and thank you, Ashish ji, to remain present here. And Mr. Bala, all the dignitaries from the BSE. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siddharth bhai. We are very fortunate to have among us this afternoon on our request Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan, who has accepted our request to be here as a guest of honor. Of course, this hall belongs to him in the Bombay Stock Exchange. As many of you know, I mean, he is today the name in the financial world to reckon with. He is a B.Tech in the mechanical engineering and IT Bombay and diploma in IIM Kolkata, PGDM. And during last 2-3 years, all of us have seen the development in the Bombay Stock Exchange. One of the fastest stock exchange as far as the technology is concerned, because Ashish bhai is known for his technology acumen, and he is being from, IIT, IIM. It is his forte. And he's transformed totally the Bombay Stock Exchange, but at the same time maintaining very high standards. He has been on the main committee of SEBI, RBI, CBDT. He is the member of the executive committee of FICCI, CII, IMC. He has been conferred with the Distinguished Alumnus Award by the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, and also the recipient of Best CEO in the Financial Market in the Asia Pacific Award by the Asian Banker. He was ranked among the top 50 Chief Information Officers way back by several magazines and institutions. And recently at the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, he on behalf of the BSE signed a MOU to set up a global exchange at IFC, GIFT City, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. With this, may I request Ashish bhai to kindly address the audience. Thank you.
Mr. Kaushik, Mr. Tanna, Siddharth Shah, Ashok Ajmera, Mr. Warren, friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and honor to be in front of you again. I won't take much time because we started a little late, but I just wanted you to be aware that BSE has given you software eBoss 2 years back, and practically it's the same software which BSE uses for its own internal surveillance. So whatever data is related to your brokerage house is available to you, but entire data is available to BSE also. So there is no difference between what you see and what we see. So there is no confusion that can happen. You don't have to buy new software to do your internal compliances on real time and so on and so on. So that is one thing all of you must be using. Second is that PMLA imposes certain responsibility on BSE and certain responsibilities on the brokers also. And we need to be aware that it's no longer what I call voluntary thing. It's a compulsory thing for all of us to do business. We also need to be compliant with the PMLA regulations as much or even more as compared to the SEBI regulations. So all of you need to be aware, and that's why we had several meetings with the FIU team in Delhi and in Mumbai over the last couple of years, and then Mr. Tiwari agreed to come and address all of you. So sir, thank you for coming to BSE and address all the compliance officers at various brokerage houses. Currently, even sir, it is being live webcast, so people are going to watch it from across their offices in India, and this will also go on the website of the broker forum, so that anytime people want to refer to this discussion, that will be available. Recently, BSE has come out with this weekly, monthly, quarterly and annual price bands. Many of you might be aware, many of you might not have read the news, but it is a major change in terms of the NSE, BSE's exclusive stocks which are not connected to NSE. BSE has almost 4,000 plus 4,200 stocks which are only on BSE. And those stocks will now have weekly, monthly, quarterly and annual price bands in addition to the daily price bands. So that's a fundamental change that is going to take place, and you need to be aware. Every day you are going to get files of what is the price band that is available. Of course, the software will not take the orders beyond that, so you don't have to worry about your software going in and the orders going in. But you need to be aware that it's a significant change in our operations, and that's basically to stop price manipulations, tax evasion and all. We are also starting 2 new segments in which this exclusive stocks will be divided. So currently all the stocks are in the main board, and then we have A group, B group, C1, all those different groups. But we are now in the process of creating 2 separate segments for the exclusive stocks. So in case you don't want to trade in any one of those stocks, you just don't basically you ensure that you don't trade in those segments, so that all those segments will not be available. So many brokers have told me that they are afraid of trading in stocks which may later on come into issues if they are exclusive stocks. And that's where we have created these exclusive segments which are going to happen over next probably a month or so. And so all of you need to be aware. The last point I want to discuss is this entire perspective on using stock markets for tax evasion. Somewhere on the line, if you would have seen, the SIT has always worried about the tax evasion part of it, black money inside India as well as abroad. But recently, SEBI's most of the orders are relating to tax evasion. And BSE cannot be used for tax evasion. So all the actions which we are taking now, whether we have this weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual price bands, or 2 exclusive segments coming up for exclusive stocks, all these are basically towards ensuring that BSE doesn't become a playground for people to evade taxes. And anyone trying to do that now onwards, even for the past, if you have done it, you should be aware. Whether on BSE or NSE, you will be caught even if you have done it in the past. Because many people think only in BSE it happens that if you do it on BSE you get caught, if you do it anywhere else you don't get caught. But that is not true. You will get caught in future. At least you should be aware that everyone will have the same sort of treatment meted out to them. So exchanges should not be used for price manipulation nor for tax evasion, and that is what our current framework is. We are moving in that direction. In stock options also, SEBI has come out with newer orders which are relating to that, and you need to be aware that somewhere on the line, BS is going to also strengthen the surveillance, the price bands and other things even in stock options. So with that, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Ashish Bhai. Yes, this warning is there, very stern warning, and I think all of us sitting here really do not have to worry because we don't get involved into this kind of thing. Maybe some other people. And yes, if you do it, you will get caught. We have Mr. Sagar Tanna with us. He is the director of TSS Consultancy, and I think many of you sitting here must be knowing it because he is the one who taught many of us the PMLA provisions and why it is important, and the kind of software, the kind of warnings which you get when you do day-to-day trading for your clients. So a lot of awareness has been created by him. I think he has trained people at more than 100 corporates and maybe 200-300 brokers places. And we have the registration process going on in our BBF office, in Forum's office, to be familiar with the registration on the FIU website, and which is going to go on for next 2 days at the given time, which has been circulated already. I would request Shri Sagar Tanna to just bring it to the notice of everyone. What is he doing and why it is important and what is going on. Thank you, Mr. Sagar.
Friends, I would like to thank Forum. I would like to thank the dignitaries on the dais, Mr. Ashok, Mr. Ashish, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Siddharth, Mr. Deepika Mittal, and Mr. Shah. It's an honor to be on this stage. Right. So, friends, let's get started with my 10 minutes, which is going to be here. Two areas. One is about the registration with FIU, and the second is about certain key, implementation experiences that we've had over the last 7-8 years that we've been implementing AML programs. Let me start with the first one, which is the registration. So, as per the Act and the FIU guidelines, we require a registration that needs to be done for every reporting entity. I'll just explain you that what are the categories under which a stockbroker needs to be registered, right? Most of us are members of the stock exchange as an equity membership, a derivative membership either as a trading member or as a trading cum clearing member. And the third is a lot of these are also depository participants, whether it be with CDSL or with NSDL, right? So under the guidelines, there are, I would say broadly, 3 categories which are required for registration. The first is if you are offering equity trades to your clients, so you're a member of the equity exchanges, BSE or NSE or any one, then you need to register under a category which we call as the share broker category. Correct? The second is the category which is called as a derivatives member. So if you are offering derivatives trades to your client, that's the second category that you need to register in. And the third is the depository participant. So even if you are offering services of CDSL and NSDL, you need to take one registration as a depository participant. One technical piece here is that when you're doing this registration on the FIU website, for a sample dry run, we'll do one today out here, it's important to have a separate email address for each reporting entity registration, right? So if ABC Private Limited is a depository participant, a stockbroker and a derivative members, you will need to take 3 registrations for 3 different reporting entities, and for each registration you require to have a separate email address, right? Friends, just to do a quick walkthrough, I have been asked to facilitate one of the members to do a registration online here. Right, so this is the FIU website. I'm going to quickly call one of the members, Mr. Pura. Can we have you on stage? Yeah. So what we're going to do is quickly follow, step 1, which is to do the reporting entity registration. At the end of this step, there is another step, which is the principal officer registration, which happens subsequently. But let's do the step 1 or the flow 1 first. Friends, when you come to the website, on this page, you go to register new user, right? This is the screen that pops out, after which we go to the next step, which is register a new reporting entity. I'm sorry? You cannot? Okay. That's okay, right? I'm just going to try to say things, if you can't read, not a problem. So this is the page where we're going to enter the very basic details. Pura. Yeah. So Mr. Purav represents Axiom Share Broking Private Limited, and the registration that is required for this reporting entity is the share broker category registration. Let's quickly try to do this. The first one is a reporting entity number, which is a registration number. So we are going to enter the SEBI registration number out here of the equity market, which could be of either of the exchanges if you're a member of both, either BSE or NSE any one. The next is the reporting entity name. The third, as you can see, is a list where we need to select the category. So either of the 3 categories we can take. We need to do it for all the 3 one by one. For now, let's start with the share broker category. So I've selected INBRO, that's the code of the category. The name of the user, you could ideally keep it, the principal officer or the designated director or a concerned person for AML. Perfect. So ideally it's a SEBI registration number and the basic company details that are required. We take this and move to the next screen is where we are asked for a confirmation whether these details are okay. We proceed. Right. So if you see here, now there is a request number that has come up. So the request has been registered with the FinNet portal of FIU for the reporting entity. And now we'll take a printout of this. And this needs to be signed and to be emailed to the FIU email address, which is this one, which is ctrcell@fiuindia.gov.in. We're going to send this procedure to all the members of the forum, so you're going to get it. Right. So with this signature, you need to scan it and email it on this. Within a few working days, you will receive your ID, which is the reporting entity ID number. Using that, there is a separate registration for the principal officer of that reporting entity, which needs to be done, after which you will get a username and password which can help you log in on the FIU FinNet portal for your regulatory reporting, which is STR or CTR. Right. Right, friends, so that was on the registration piece. I've been asked to say that the forum has a camp on Friday, that is tomorrow and Monday. So for all of those who would want to use the forum infrastructure and guidance for registration are more than welcome to do so. The other details would follow by an email from the forum. Right, so I'll just take 3-4 minutes more in terms of sharing some of our experiences, and the implementation problems that we generally face with, the members. Friends, 2-3 things which I would like to highlight on this stage here is, over the last 7 years, we've been facing common problems when we try to implement an AML compliance program in any organization. And the first one is training on the subject. A lot of times we see that the understanding of AML as a subject is very, very limited. So, we first start with what is AML, starting from full forms of PMLA, FIU and FATF, correct? And then we try to correlate them with our, daily routines. And, there is one example that we always use is that many a times, we all are consciously, doing certain monitoring on our own. It is just that we do not know that this is actually an AML or this is actually an alert, right? So there's a common example, friends, I use is that if you were to, meet a friend, on a signal and, you were probably traveling in a Maruti Swift or a Maruti 800 and you see a friend who's traveling in a Mercedes, and you kind of recollect and say, hey man, this guy 5 years back used to come on a scooter or a cycle, right? And you wave at him, he stops the car, right? Right there. And what's the first question you ask him? Sorry? Right. The first thing you ask him, how do you manage to do this? If he was a very close friend, you said, boss, lottery lag gaya kya? Right? So, unconsciously, we are all taking a measure, a financial measure, of every person that we meet or we interact with. And the next time we meet, we immediately try to see whether there's a big change. And if there is, we kind of alert and do a due diligence and say, what happened, correct? I think, broadly, this is how we start in terms of telling people that PMLA or, anti-money laundering measure is about knowing the behavior, expected behavior of your customers. And when you see something unusual, just inform the principal officer, and that is what we call as creating an alert, right? So these are very basics that we start with, which further goes on in terms of what are the obligations, the screening, and so on. But the basic is very, very simple. The other challenge that we face during implementations is about decision making. A lot of times we see that, the senior management passes on crucial decision making to, lower level people. When I'm saying decision making, it's about three things in particular. One is customer acceptance policy, second is risk profiling, and the third is the thresholds and the criteria for generating alerts. Friends, these are three core requirements, and these should be, done well, and without which having any kind of an AML program will not succeed if you haven't got your homework right. So, we sincerely request that it should be a top-down approach, and it should not be left, to the second or the third level in terms of taking these key decisions like the thresholds and the criteria. And lastly, we are all waiting to hear Mr. Tiwari. I have, a few questions that I would like to ask him on behalf of, certain members where, we get to answer these kind of questions. One is, as we all know, there have been orders by SEBI for these so-called superficial gains, short-term and long-terms, right? A lot of members realize it now that 2 years back, some of their clients, indulged into something like this, and this is what they did. So, that's the first question. Can they be filing an STR today for a transaction that was done 3 years back? The second is, if they received an investigation letter from the stock exchange's surveillance asking them for certain information about a client or certain transactions by a client, it is then that the compliance realized that this client is doing something unusual, correct? There is first question is, do we need to file STR? Although we did not know about it, but now we know because the exchange sent out a letter. And the second is, should we ask the client to stop trading if the nature of the transaction is market manipulation? Because there is somewhat of a thin line where PMLA or it's about not tipping off the customer, but at the same time, SEBI, in the interest of the market, would ask the broker to stop the trade for that particular client. So it kind of means an indirect tipping off. And the third thing is, and this one is the major one, if the broker has sufficient reason to believe that the amount of money that is coming in from a customer is within his financial size, but the client is not ready to give a declaration in black and white that this is his income and this is his net worth, can the broker still conclude the matter if he is convinced that there is no STR required for this? So, these are the three, key points. And lastly, one small feedback on behalf of, the members here is that the capital market, suspicions are a lot sophisticated. So there is a lot of data churn, that brings us to a conclusion that yes, this is suspicious. So for example, last X days of turnover by a group of clients, compare with the exchange turnover, the price movement and the occupation. We've been, the FIU has been asking the members to write everything in ground of suspicion. Now that becomes a little difficult. So if you could allow an attachment, which could be a report or an Excel sheet of certain workings that could be attached, it will make life easier, for the member, because he would be putting that as a supporting. as his ground of suspicion, and also to the person doing analysis on the FIU side to completely see that instead of writing long essays which are actually tabular and completely numbers. So with this, we are all very eager to hear him, and thank you, friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sagar. You really covered many of those issues which we as a broker community are facing in date, especially the third point, And sir, on that, I would also like you to little clarify, or I'll put more little emphasis on that if we know by various means that yes, client has sufficient means to do the trade of that level, of that scale, but many of the clients, this culture has to be still fully developed in this country. They don't give in writing to you the exact position of their statement of affairs or their balance sheets. So, do we, there's a very thin line between an alert or taking your own decision and later on then getting punished for it. So, if some more clarification can be there on that issue, it will be helpful for the trade and for the members like us. We are very fortunate, to have we can hear everything from the horse's mouth now today. We are very fortunate to have Mr. P.K. Tiwari with us, the Director FIU India. Since January 2011, he is a civil servant and has over 25 years of experience in the administrative services. During his tenure in the government, Mr. Tiwari has held many positions at both state and federal level in the areas of finance, audit, financial sector, regulations, supervisions, and lot many. Any subject you talk about finance, and he has covered it. Prior to his current assignment of the Director FIU IND, Mr. Tiwari worked as the Executive Director of the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority. Mr. Tiwari, by qualification, has a master's degree in Geology and Economics and professional certification which he has done in financial analysis, financial sector audit, internal audit, and AML CET. With this, I have great pleasure in inviting Mr. P.K. Tiwari to speak before us this afternoon. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Azmera, for those very kind words, Mr. Chauhan and other distinguished persons on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. I don't know whether you are fortunate to have me in the midst of you, but I am certainly very fortunate to be addressing this gathering. Also because this is a very historic setting, and I truly feel privileged to be speaking today to you. In FIU India, we have been going around sensitizing the so-called reporting entities about their obligations under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And I must tell you that the canvas of reporting entities is so huge that it's well-nigh impossible to cover all of them in short time. I have personally been going around since 2013 when the Prevention of Money Laundering Act was amended to include more reporting entities in line with international standards, and that's when the stock exchanges also came in the ambit of Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The brokers were already existing before that. Along with the stock exchanges, there were some other new reporting entities like India Post, commodity market players, etc., etc. So the canvas is really huge. And apart from the financial institutions, there are non-financial institutions also like real estate agents, accountants, gems and jewelry dealers, high-value items like precious stones. Then you have casino operators, all those entities and persons which are even remotely connected to the issue of money laundering. So the question comes that why why do you need so many people to be reporting to FIUs? And the answer is very simple, that money laundering is a problem, or financing of terrorism is a problem. These are the two issues that we deal with, money laundering and financing of terrorism. That these are the twin issues that everybody internationally recognizes that they cannot be addressed by law enforcement alone. If you need to address the problem of money laundering and financing of terrorism comprehensively, then everybody has to come on board, and that includes financial institutions as well as designated non-financial businesses and professions. And so, our colleagues have spoken about compliance with anti-money laundering measures. My take is that we are talking about something much more than compliance. We are talking about participation of everybody who could be impacted by money laundering. It's not mere compliance, but compliance can be in different forms. But participation means proactive participation in pursuing the proceeds of crime. And I'll spend 2 minutes in explaining what we mean by money laundering, what we mean by proceeds of crime. You know, in the international parlance, a set of offenses have been recognized as serious offenses. And those offenses are committed for profit motive. There are crimes which are done for the reason of passion, and there are crimes which are purely economic in nature. They are committed to make money. And there's unanimity on this matter that unless you take the motive out of commission of crime, you cannot tackle the crime. So all those offenses whose motive is money, the emphasis or the accent has to be on the money part of the commission of crime. So if somebody is involved in trafficking and he is generating proceeds of trafficking, then it's not enough to convict him, to investigate and convict him for trafficking, but also the concomitant or the parallel offense of money laundering. Because as long as the person knows that the proceeds of his crime are available to him, his family, accomplices, relations to enjoy, he will make a calculated decision to commit the crime or not to commit the crime. If the person knows that he can always come out of the jail and enjoy the benefits of his crime, he will commit the crime anyway. So there comes the role of, or the importance of money laundering and the importance of everybody in society to fight money laundering. Then we are also talking about financing of terrorism. And I don't need to, this is not something rocket science, I don't need to explain to you how badly or deeply we are affected by terrorism in this country. And every act of terrorism has a financial side of it. You know, the money given to the perpetrators to enable their movement, to buy the equipment, to buy a weapon, to facilitate their logistics, to money to be given to the family members if they are no more, so etc. So everything has a financial angle, and all these transactions pass through the financial system. So unless the financial system is alert and proactively helps the law enforcement authorities, law enforcement alone will not be able to deal with this. So this is the background for having such a broad canvas of reporting entities. And there comes the role of you as the reporting entity. That you have an important role to play in fighting money laundering. Money laundering, by incidentally, is derived from the word laundering. Laundry. We know that laundry is washing dirty clothes to make them clean. So money laundering means washing dirty money to make it clean. So how does one wash dirty money to make it clean money? he will devise different methods to create a distance between the source of money, which is illegal or illegitimate, to the final destination where they are invested, to make it appear like it is the product of legitimate money. And therein lies the challenge to the investigating authorities, to the intelligence community, and to the reporting entity, that how do you see the red flags that the transaction that you are dealing with could be proceeds of crime. Now you cannot do that unless you have a fairly good knowledge of the people or the customer that you are dealing with. So the word KYC is not simply taking the identification documents, getting it stamped by some gazetted officer and putting it in a folder. KYC is having as intimate knowledge of your customer as is possible to enable you to see through his transactions, whether the transactions are commensurate with the profile of the customer or not. And therein, Mr. Azmera, lies the answer to your question, that if you are convinced that your customer is not engaging in suspicious transaction, then that's the end of the matter. But then the big question is that how do you convince yourself? If you do not have credible information, then how do you convince yourself? Because filing of the suspicious transaction report is a legal obligation for which you alone are responsible. Now, the reasonable expectation will be that if you are making a decision, you base your decision on objective considerations as well as subjective consideration. So unless, my only submission is that unless you have credible information to base your decisions on, perhaps you are taking some kind of a risk. But if you are convinced, there is nobody to question that, because law gives you, I keep on saying that the law gives you the privilege to decide whether to file a suspicious transaction report or not. That's your privilege, that's your decision. The only right is that tomorrow, if somebody can prove that you did not have sufficient ground to make that decision, or you did not perform sufficient due diligence to make your decision, then you might have to face some uncomfortable questions. But as long as you recognize that filing of suspicious transaction report is not only a legal obligation, but also a privilege, I'm sure nobody will fail in his duty, in his or her duty. There's also another privilege the law gives you, and that is complete protection when you report a suspicious transaction. Number one, the report that you share with the FIU its confidentiality is protected under the law. So I cannot disclose that information to anybody except those which are permitted under the law. And there is a particular section in Prevention of Money Laundering Act which says which agencies I can share information with. And you will be surprised to know that even Ministry of Finance, I cannot share information. I can share information only with investigating authorities, which have been notified by Ministry of Finance, notifies those agencies with which I can share information. And Ministry of Finance itself is not a part of that notification. That itself speaks volumes about the confidentiality. The confidentiality is sacrosanct. We work on the basis that the intelligence that is shared with us should be shared only on need-to-know basis. Only those who need to know that intelligence will get to know of it, nobody else. So it is protected under the law. The second privilege is that you do not entail, you do not incur any civil or criminal liability if you have breached any other law of the land in filing a report to FIU. So you might have breached the Banking Regulation Act, the confidentiality given to the customer, or you might have breached Securities Contract and Regulation Act, for example. I'm not saying that, but the blanket protection under Section 24 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, it's 24 or 14? Section 40. The blanket protection given to the reporting entities that you do not incur any civil or criminal liability. You are completely immunized from any civil or criminal liability when you file a report to FIU India. So that's a huge, huge protection. Now, I've explained the difference between, in the prevention of money laundering, there are, at the end of the law, there is a schedule which lists out the laws. There are 28 laws, and the sections, particular sections in those laws, which are treated as an offense predicate to money laundering. There are about 155 or 56 offenses, which when committed and which when generate the proceeds, then they become predicate offense to money laundering offense. Okay, so money laundering is an offense which is distinct from the predicate offense. There are 156 predicate offenses listed in the law. Their commission, if it generates proceeds and those proceeds are laundered, it will give rise to the offense of money laundering. So that distinction is extremely important to have, and for all the reporting entities, it's extremely important to keep a good knowledge of the predicate offenses. So you must have a copy of the law with you, because that directly affects you. That law gives you the list of offenses, which are predicate offenses, and their proceeds qualify for the offense of money laundering. Then there is an offense of financing of terrorism, which has been defined in the UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Okay, this is a separate legislation. And anything connected with the act of terrorism, almost anything connected with terrorism has been included in that definition. So when you are conducting a transaction, please keep a watch on the transaction whether it could be connected to terrorism. If the answer is yes, it becomes a reportable transaction. And the law says that you must file a report within 7 days of coming to the conclusion that it is a suspicious transaction. So that answers, Mr. Azmera, your question, when you should file the report. The report has to be filed within 7 days of coming to the conclusion that it could be a suspicious transaction, irrespective of the period. I mean, you might have overlooked it, or you might have not known, but when you have come to know about the transaction and its suspicious nature, then within 7 days you should file the report. It's extremely important to how do you enable yourself to spot the suspicious transaction. Now, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, because as I said, we are talking about a canvas which is as huge as one could imagine. We are talking about banking sector, we are talking about insurance sector, we are talking about capital market, that includes both primary market and secondary market. We are talking about card operators, we are talking about money transfer agents, we are talking about India Post, we are talking about pension sector, we are talking about gems and jewelry, we are talking about accountants, we are talking about casinos. So how do you really decide which transaction is suspicious? And there we have embarked on an exercise which is very much sectoral in nature. For example, your sector is very unique. It is not the same as the banking sector. So our endeavor has been to go up people from the particular sectors, form a working group of experts who have spent a lifetime working in that area, who know the business in and out, who are aware of the risks facing that particular sector, who are aware of the vulnerabilities in the particular sector and who are in a position to identify the red flags. For example, Mr. Chauhan talked about EBOS. Now, EBOS is something which is very, very specific to our sector, the trading on the stock exchanges, and he has 11 or 13 red flags. Okay. Now, I was looking at those red flags. They are extremely important red flags. And even if you decide not to add to that list, I think there are enough red flags in those 13 indicators to enable you to take a closer look at the particular transaction. And then, when you take a closer look at the particular transaction and you transpose on them the KYC information, your knowledge of the customer that you are dealing with, you might decide to look a bit deeper into that. You might decide to go for enhanced due diligence, what we call, this is a legal word, enhanced due diligence. That when you are in doubt, you are looking for more information. You are looking for further verification. And what you verify? The antecedents of the client that you are dealing with, the source of his wealth, the source of his assets. That will put you in a position to make a better quality decision whether you are dealing with proceeds of crime, suspected proceeds of crime. You really don't have to act like investigator or justice system. You really don't pronounce judgment. But if a transaction appears to you suspicious as it would appear to be to a man of prudence, a prudent person, then the legal responsibility of reporting STR kicks in. And when that happens, please do perform your legal responsibility, lest you might have to do some uncomfortable explaining at a subsequent period of time. Now again, I would like to stop here by repeating what I said in the beginning, that in the FIU, we are not looking at compliance so much as participation. We want to co-opt you because the international community has designed an architecture. The architecture is as follows. It expects all the reporting entities to furnish reports to one entity called Financial Intelligence Unit, and it requires that every country should have one FIU, not different FIUs. So one FIU for each country. Why so? Because if the information goes to different parts, then the advantage of aggregation will not happen. So the conception is that in every country there must be one FIU to which all the reporting entities must report. And when the information is coming from diverse sources into a central place, it gets linked. The information coming from different sources gets linked, and in FIU we are getting 5 kinds of reports. Five large cash transaction, counterfeit currency, cross-border wire transfer, etc., etc. So 5 kinds of reports from thousands of reporting entities. And we have an advanced analytical tool to look for similar information coming from diverse sources and put them together in one folder. So what comes out of it is a very quality added piece of information which can be used by the investigating authority to investigate it further. So you might be looking at a particular transaction and maybe wondering whether I should report it as suspicious transaction or not. But chances are that if you report that as a suspicious transaction, and some other entities also have reported, because these kinds of people, they operate at a wider level. They use different institutions that use different mechanisms. And if all the reporting entities are mature enough to identify suspicious transaction, they send it to the FIU, then what comes out of it is a very high quality report. So whatever you are sending to the FIU goes into a central database where it gets linked with related information coming from different sources. And that information is extremely valuable for making further investigation. So please do file STRs, not as a mere compliance activity, but in recognition of the fact that all of us have a solemn duty to fight crime in the country. And that mission cannot be complete unless we tackle the proceeds of crime. So we need to work together, and I keep telling that in this value chain, which starts with the reporting entity, and you are one of the reporting entities. This value chain starts with the reporting entity. FIU is only the intermediate stop, and it goes to the investigating authorities, which finally investigates and prosecutes. So as the starting point, you are the most important part of the value chain. Your importance is no less than the investigating authorities that finally investigates and prosecutes the case. Because you are the gatekeepers which have spotted the first red flag and which have decided to file the suspicious transaction report. And I can tell you, there have been so many STRs in FIU, sitting in FIU, we know that, where a very innocuous suspicious transaction report filed by some bank or some reporting entity has led to detection of hundreds of crores of illicit funds. Hundreds of crores of illicit funds. There have been people who were caught based on a single STR, and those people were prosecuted and convicted for corruption running into hundreds of crores. There are people who have been successfully investigated who have used the route of trade to launder thousands of crores of rupees, all based on a very innocuous looking STR. So please do not underestimate the value of STR. A single piece of information, a single piece of relevant information coming from random quarters has the tremendous potential to lead to unearthing of proceeds of crime. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been truly a privilege talking to you, and I must thank BSc Brokers Forum for giving me a chance to speak to you. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Tiwari, for such an elaborate discussion on the subject. So, we are all the watchdog, and in order to be responsible citizen, we should not just treat it as a mere formality to file the STR under FIU, but fulfill our responsibility as a responsible citizen of this country, so that we can make thousands of crore unearthed the money, the illegal money, illicit money, and which is our rightful duty. So we are a part of FIU, not against FIU. That is what is the message which goes here. We have some time for question answer. We can take some 3-4 questions from the audience. Do we have? Yeah, the mics, please. If anybody has 2-3 questions, the lady the other side to my left, in the third row, in that banquet table. Yeah, you have the mic there, behind you.
Hello, sir. I would like to ask you one thing about this registering entity. In that case, if we, being a broker, we hold the license of portfolio manager, merchant banker, then do we have to register separately for all this?
We are a broker or a merchant banker or a portfolio manager, she is saying, do we need to register separately for?
Okay, yes, actually, technically, yes, you should be doing because they are separate categories, but we are currently examining the possibility that if you have already registered, whether using that registration, that FIU REID, you can file reports giving a different RE category. See, there are 2 things which you have to input in an STR. One is your FIU REID, which is a 10-digit number, alphanumeric character, and there is a 5 alpha character RE category, which you would know goes into the batch file. That is INPRO for a broker or INTPB for a depository participant. So we are just looking at the feasibility, technical feasibility, whether with the one FIU RE if you change the RE category, there is no conflict. So probably my colleague who is looking into it is on a training. He'll be back in another week or so. So by the end of that, say 10-day period, we'll be coming out with an advisory. If that is feasible, then we'll be giving an advisory so that you need not register more than that.
So when I called your call center announced, they said if category wise we have to register for all the entities already.
Yes, yes. So currently since
if you have a PMS or merchant bank, then you need to register into it.
Currently, that is the thing, that's what I'm saying. Technically, since there are separate categories, we have done that, but we are also looking at that possibility if we can do it. Because we understand in this sector, they have multiple licenses for different categories and it becomes easier for people to handle that. So we are looking at that. So just be patient for some more time and we'll be coming back to you.
Yes. Yeah, Rekha, yeah, there in the center here.
There's an assumption in the broking industry that when you are reporting to FIU, that you report basically transactions which are beyond economic rationale, that is much beyond income net worth of a particular client. But any other market manipulation related transactions, they feel there's an assumption. They feel that that should not be reported to FIU. We wanted further clarification on that.
See, I mentioned that in the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, there is a schedule of predicate offences. There, each law has been described, and Securities Contract Regulation Act (SCRA) is also one of the laws under which two offences have been mentioned: market manipulation and insider trading. Now, if somebody is profiting, making money out of these two predicate offences, then that becomes the proceeds of crime as a predicate offence for offence of money laundering. So, if you suspect that any of these two offences has been committed or is being committed, then it becomes eligible for reporting as suspicious transaction. And reporting can be done only to the FIU, because the word mentioned in the law, and I must tell everybody to pay special attention to section 12 of the law. Section 12 of the law describes the fundamental obligation which everybody has to observe. And these fundamental obligations are very simple, One is that you must identify your customer. The KYC is from that obligation. Identify your customer, and then beyond that, not merely identify but verify the identity of your customer. This is a fundamental obligation. The second fundamental obligation is that you must keep records of the transactions and records of the KYC documents for a period of 5 years. So KYC documents for 5 years after you have stopped dealing with that person. Transaction records for 5 years after the date of transaction. This is the second fundamental obligation. The third fundamental obligation is to identify the beneficial ownership. Your clients could be of two types: natural persons and artificial persons, or legal persons, or legal arrangements when you are talking about trust. Now, if it is a natural person, there is no problem. But if it is a legal person, then the law expects you to know who actually is the controlling person. Who is the controlling natural person behind the legal person. So that is a third fundamental obligation that you must perform. And the fourth one is, of course, reporting to FIU. Now, each one of these obligations, 4 obligations, has been further elaborated in Prevention of Money Laundering rules. That is also part of this thing. For example, KYC, identification of the customer and verification of the identity, has been extensively dealt with in Rule 9, which incidentally also deals with determination of beneficial ownership. When it comes to reporting, for example, it has been dealt with in Rule
7 and 8. Okay? So similarly, section 12 is of fundamental importance to you, and each of the reporting entity must clearly understand the obligation under section 12. Because if section 12 is breached, then section 13 becomes applicable, and section 13 is a very unpleasant section because it talks about sanctions. And those sanctions are quasi-judicial in nature. Okay, a judicial order has to be passed, and those sanctions are applicable not only to the organization but also to the officers, employees and directors of the organization. So it becomes very unpleasant, risky and unavoidable. That is why please make sure that section 12 is followed in letter and spirit, because that's the law of the land. And section 12 has to be read along with the regulations. You want to say something?
Just to supplement your point on this, if you go and look at the schedule, in paragraph 11 it says offences under the Securities Exchange Board of India Act. So that's what sir was saying, that there is a schedule and offences are listed. It says section 12A read with section 24, prohibition of manipulative and deceptive devices, insider trading and substantial acquisition of securities or control. So this is the offence which is listed under the schedule to the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. I'll also draw your attention to the definition of suspicious transaction, which is given in Rule 2G, which says suspicious transaction means a transaction referred to in clause H, including an attempted transaction, whether or not made in cash, which to a person acting in good faith gives rise to a reasonable ground of suspicion that it may involve proceeds of an offence specified in the schedule to the Act, regardless of the value involved. So there is no doubt that if there is a case of insider trading or any manipulative practice, it has to be reported. In fact, it is all the more required because there is a clear-cut, definite definition of this suspicious transaction.
Yes.
Sir, can one person be principal officer more than one company?
Yeah, I don't think so there is any issue. If the company is the same, yes.
If it's a group company, then, I mean, there are different companies, but it's the same group. So can one person be principal officer in more than one company?
I don't think so. But like Mr. Tanna pointed out, you have to make sure that your email ID is different. Who asked that question? I can't spot that person. Okay. So you can't register. You have to have separate email IDs, and you have to make sure that when you log into that avatar, you have to put the correct email ID. Otherwise, your file will get rejected.
Thank you.
अच्छा, मैं निमेश इंद्रो से NSA मेंबर्स के यहाँ से कंप्लेंट ऑफिसर बोल रहा हूँ। मैंने 2011 में FIU में रजिस्ट्रेशन किया है। उसके बाद मैं हर 6 महीना में FIU में प्रिंसिपल ऑफिसर का रजिस्ट्रेशन का डॉक्यूमेंट भेज रहा हूँ, ईमेल कर रहा हूँ। अभी तक मुझे कोई रिप्लाई नहीं मिल रहा है। मैंने डायरेक्ट दिल्ली में भी बात की, मुझे बोला जाता है कि आपको रिप्लाई मिल जाएगा, यूजर ID मिल जाएगा, अभी तक मिला नहीं। इसके रिलेटेड मैंने एक्सचेंज में भी कंप्लेंट दे दी कि मैंने FIU में रजिस्ट्रेशन किया है मगर मुझे यूजर ID और लॉगिन ID नहीं मिल रहा है, तो मैं क्या करूं? मुझे अगर कोई सस्पिशियस ट्रांजेक्शन कुछ करना है तो मैं क्या करूं? कम से कम 2011 में सब लेटर लेके आया हूँ जो मैंने दिल्ली में रजिस्टर ID से किया। अभी तक ना मुझे कोई ईमेल या लेटर या कुछ भी मिला नहीं।
आप उसकी कॉपी मुझे दे दीजिए। आई विल मेक श्योर दैट इट इज डन इन द नेक्स्ट वीक।
ओके,
कॉपी दे दीजिए।
मैं आपको जेरॉक्स कॉपी दे दूँ।
Anybody else? Yeah, here in the middle, is the second.
For designated director, the circular that had come in 2012 March, designated director for a corporate, the mention there is it includes a managing director or whole-time director. So my question is it possible to appoint a designated director who is a chairman, but not a managing director and not a whole-time director?
Either a managing director or a whole-time director. But
because the word uses includes, it is not,
yeah.
he is a director, but he is not a full-time director, he is not a managing director, he is a chairman. He's not a, because the circular says it includes for a corporate entity, it includes a managing director or a whole-time director.
If he is a non-executive chairman, then I think then he may not be allowed. But if he is a paid whole-time, in the sense any director who has been paid, even if he is a chairman, he will be treated as whole-time director.
See, the intention behind the concept of designated director was that there should be somebody at the board level who is available whole-time for overseeing the affairs and especially AML, anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism. But if you are talking about a part-timer, obviously he is not going to give that much of attention. We need, the intention of the law is to have somebody full-time who is responsible for policy level decisions on money laundering, anti-money laundering and financing of terrorism. So part-timer was not the spirit of the law.
Yes, you have great opportunity. I mean, yeah, please.
I would just want you to elaborate. I mean, one point you had raised while discussing the earlier question was on attempted transaction.
Take the mic little up, little higher.
For the benefit of the members, if you could elaborate on the attempted transactions, that would help a lot for everyone to understand.
Again, you have to look at the spirit of the law. What is the spirit of the law? That we are required to report anything that could be related to proceeds of crime. So it is not necessary that transaction was completed. If somebody comes to you with an inquiry, which indicates that that person may be dealing with proceeds of crime, the law, the spirit of the law is that should be, not only spirit but letter also say that. And that's why Deepika read out that whether the transaction is cash or not, and whether it is completed or not, even then it has to be reported. Because what will happen that if you are reporting an attempted transaction to FIU, it will get reported to investigator. And the investigator will have other means to verify whether you're talking about proceeds of crime or not. So the law, the expectation from the law or expectation of the law is very high degree that any proceeds of crime anywhere in the economy or society, whatever signals are there, those signals have to be captured and reported. And you might remember the Cobra Post incident where one reporter has gone from bank to bank and he had only a story, a fictitious story that he had a lot of money belonging, a lot of cash belonging to a politician and he wanted to deposit. And in that process he got different responses from different banks. They were all very helpful. So it became a very major media scandal in 2013 and we had to take cognizance of the fact that here is a person who is clearly telling that I have black money and it is not being reported. So what is the level of partnership? I spoke about partnership. It's not, and a lot of people rationalize that no, the transaction has not been completed. अरे भाई वो आपके पास आके बोल रहा है कि मेरे पास black money है, and you are waiting for a legal interpretation that transaction has not been completed. If somebody comes to you with a gun, you are going to commit murder, will you not report him that this fellow is dangerous, he is going around with a gun? So that's the spirit of attempted transaction. That wherever you find a trace of illegal money, please report.
Yeah, there was one, yes.
Once we've identified a client who might be indulging in suspicious transactions, are we under any obligation to stop transacting with that client going forward? And second, suppose we continue to transact with that client or the client continues to do transactions through us,
do we then file the subsequent transactions under STR also?
Once the STR is filed, do we continue doing the transaction?
It's something suspicious, yes, you should.
Yeah.
Subsequent STRs. And whether or not you want to continue business with that person, I mean, we can't give any policy on that. That is something which, like, was described when we started, was a customer acceptance policy. Depending upon what policy you adopt, I mean, FIU cannot dictate. We don't say stop business with anybody. That is your own call. That is a call which the reporting entity needs to take, whether they want to continue with that customer or not. As far as we are concerned, you should be filing STRs if there is any suspicious transaction, and subsequently, if there are further transactions which are of a suspicious nature, you should file a supplementary STR subsequently, giving reference of the earlier STR which you have filed. You should put the patch ID and all that information and file a subsequent STR. You should do that.
One from Siddharth Bhai, our chairman of BSc Broker Forum.
Sir, I appreciate what you are saying is not look at it as a compliance, but look at a partnership and try to contribute on this as a partner. So what I understand, what she explained, that there are a lot of things and even attempted transaction which is not complete. So it means it is so wide, so many transactions, so many entities reporting to you. Don't you think so? You will be flooded with so many transactions and you will be able to justice to all the transactions.
For that question, the basic presumption is that when a STR is filed, it is filed with a lot of responsibility. We obviously don't encourage filing of superfluous or frivolous STRs. And we presume that you have filed the STR only when you are convinced that it could be proceed support. Now, having satisfied yourself that yes, it is a suspicious transaction and has to be reported, we don't put a limit. Whether we are dealing with 10,000 transactions or 1 million transactions, that's our problem. And as Mr. Chavan keeps upgrading his system, we will also keep upgrading our system. But the basic rationale of FIU is this only, that you have information coming from different sources and you should have the processing ability to make sense out of that information. So as long as you are convinced that you are filing a substantive report, please don't bother. Leave it to us to bother. The technology will take care of it. And technology is taking care of it. Now, today, as we are talking, barring a few instances where the gentleman had difficulty in registering, thousands of reporting entities are filing thousands of reports on a daily basis. And the system is able to process them all and sort them together. And we are able to produce high quality reports. So, and we are, we just implemented a system which is truly unique in the world because it's an integrated system, one system connecting the reporting entities on one hand and the law enforcement agencies on the other. And we have a sophisticated code processing system and we have already started planning for its further upgradation. So, no problem. Just, if you are convinced, please shoot your STR.
So you take care of your business, we take care of our business.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir, and ma'am, for giving so candid, open and very good answers. I think everyone who asked the questions here are satisfied with the answers given here. And very rarely you get this kind of an opportunity because the FIU, we feel as if, faceless organization, you just have to report, suddenly something can come on you also. But here we have all these gentlemen and ma'am with us. We were very fortunate. Thank you very much for giving those questions. Out of our love and affection which we have developed for you, we would like to present certain mementos to all of you. I would request Siddharth Bhai to present a memento to Shri P.K. Tiwari ji. Board member Shri Uttam Bagri to kindly present a memento to our own Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan, the MD and CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange. Another board member, Haren, to come forward and present a memento to Shri Manoj Kaushik. Shri Pura Pojdar to come forward and present a memento to Shri Sagar Tanna. And I take this opportunity of presenting a memento to Ms. Deepika Mittal.